recording. Okay. Hey, Papa. How you doing? Took me a second. Happy birthday. I've tried 5 or 6 times over the past 3 to 4 days to record this exact same video just to give you guys an update on what's going on with me, what's going on in my life. And I've been unsuccessful. Every time that I start, I get too emotional to finish. The grief just comes out of nowhere and I'm just unable to complete the video. I'm unable to finish. So I'll give it another shot. My family is just like, don't worry about recording any videos. Give it some time, as long as what you need. And while I agree, I am indebted to this channel, and I know that I've spoken upon my father multiple times during the length of this channel, probably too many times to count. So I think it is important to update my audience and the MT Army of kind of what is going on. But yeah, I've been grieving heavily over the past week. You know, grief is weird. For those who haven't experienced grief, and I'll keep it funky with you guys, this is really the first time, well, not the first time, maybe the second time, but definitely the most in my life that I've experienced this pain. And if you haven't ever experienced before, think of it like this. It's like you ever wake up from a dream, or rather a bad dream or a nightmare, and you know that relief that you feel once you realize that what you were going through in that nightmare is no longer real. It's not a part of your reality. It's just something that your brain concocted. Grief feels like the exact opposite of that relief, because the reality that you're currently in is real. It's not fake. Before I get into the story, you know, I think it's important, especially those that are new onto the channel, who are just getting up to speed with the content and the videos, to kind of go a little bit more in depth regarding my father and I's relationship. I was raised in a single parent home after my parents were divorced. I believe I was like 8 years old, 7 years old, or something like that. And I stayed in the house that I grew up at. Some of you guys might realize that the background is a little bit different. And the reason for that is that this is the room that I grew up with from 0 years old to 18 years old. This is where I was. It looks a little bit different. As soon as I left, my pops painted the walls, took all the posters and stuff like that down, is what he should have, and made it like to his storage room / closet. You know, so I would always just come back to visit him for like holidays, Christmas, and things such as that. But yeah, it was me and him. You know, he was the ace, I was the deuce. It was me and him against the world from 7 years old all the way up to when I left for school. And that's something, especially after a split and a divorce, is not really typical. A young boy going with his father, and his father having primary custody, and that father raising that boy into being a man. It's not a typical story, but it's my story. And I would always wear that story with great pride, because I saw who my father was and what it took for him, and the sacrifice that it took for him to create a space of consistency, to create a space of discipline, to create a space where I understood who I was, and I understood what it meant to be a man. But yeah, I'm in the room that I grew up in, and the reason why I am here is my father 7 or so weeks ago, he asked me to come home. He said he needed my help. Now, previous to coming home, 6 months before that, I had moved. And in typical fashion, as any new stage in my life, remember I said me and my pops was peas in a pod, best friends, if you will. He was Batman and I was Robin, okay? He helped me move, okay? As what he did at every stage in life, whether it be from moving from here to go off to college, from college to go get my first job in the Philadelphia area, from there to go to my grad degree program in upstate New York, from there to then go to Ohio, which I was at for a number of years. Every step of the way, my father was always there, ensuring that I was good, that I was taken care of, that I was protected, and making sure that the walls where my domicile was a degree of security. He felt like he needed to be there, and I really appreciated him for doing that. But this last move, it was a little bit different because he told me that he had pain. He told me that he had back pain. Back pain. You know, I have back pain. You know, in fact, in previous years, he had back pain as well. But he told me it felt different. A lot different. So when he went back home to New York, he went to the doctor. I made sure that he followed up with his appointment, as what he always told me to do. That's why I tell you guys on the channel, make sure you guys are getting your physicals. Continue to ensure that your numbers are correct. And if they're not, do what you have to do in order to change whatever in your life, your diet, what have you, in order to improve yourself. But he went to go get checked, and the cancer markers within his body showed as positive. After that, he went to go get a biopsy, and the biopsy showed a form of kidney cancer. Kidney cancer. Where did that come from? He's telling me this over the phone. I remember thinking to myself, oh, like, shit, I gotta go get my blood test. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that we have the same blood type. Like, if he needs my kidney, you know, he's always been for me there wherever I needed him. If he needed something from me, how can I give it back to him? But then he told me that wasn't the cause of his back pain. So he went to go get another biopsy, specifically on his spine. And the exact same cancer cells that they previously found, they found in his spine, which means that the cancer had moved. I think the medical term that they call it is metastasize. I think I said that right. It's just crazy to me that I, having my cancer journey back at the end of 2021, and my father being there for me as much as what he was, and to think that, you know, a little over a year and a half later, my dad would begin his cancer battle as well. This was the end of December 2022. Already an incredible year. Many highs, many lows. RIP to my friend Kevin Samuels. But towards the end of the year, we had gotten this news. January rolls around and chemotherapy starts. At this portion, my pops was extremely optimistic. When he told me that the cancer had spread, I knew that that wasn't good. But he remained positive. His demeanor remained unchanged. And he simply said, Let's get ready for war. Let's get ready to fight. He started chemotherapy in January of 2023, and I wasn't in New York, but I would talk to him each and every day. It was a part of my daily regimen, which, truth be told, it was already a part of my regimen, but it was like once every other day, once every 2 days prior to that. Like I said before, we're pretty much best friends. Every time that I asked for an update, it was nothing but good news. Progress had been made, or the chemotherapy is not as bad as what he thought that it was going to be, that the doctors were optimistic regarding his prognosis, said that his body was strong enough to fight. It was going to be a tough fight and a tough battle, but he had the strength of what it took to combat. January ends, February ends, March comes. I remember this is my trip to London. I was in London and I remember calling him. And when I called him, I can hear beep, beep, beep in the background. And I'm talking to him and I'm thinking, are you in a hospital? But I waited for a couple of extra beeps. And I asked him, Pops, you in a hospital? And he said that he was. I said, how long have you been in the hospital? Because I'm thinking like, well, we just got on the phone. Why is that not the first thing that you talk about? He said he had been in the hospital for 2 weeks. I said, Dad, I wouldn't have gone to London if I knew you were going to be in the hospital. He said, son, you're living your life. I didn't want to bother you. I wanted you to keep living your life within your purpose. And I knew that telling you that something happened was going to take you away from what makes you happy. Of course, I was mad at him for not updating me. What I then found out is that many of his updates weren't as positive as what he led on for me to believe. I was like, Dad, I can get back home early from London. He said, no, don't even do that because I'm about to come home. I pried for more information on exactly what it is that's going on. What stage is it? Is there a time limit within your prognosis? But he wouldn't answer any of those questions. He just said, break a leg out there. Show him what you got. Show him what you're made of. He was more excited for me to be out in London than even I was. So I get back from London. He then again is telling me that his prognosis is fantastic. I then leave again and go to Jamaica. Unexpected trip. I am midway within my Jamaica trip and I call him again. And during this phone conversation, he says to me, now I need you to come home because I need some help. So I did. I came home. Not long after coming back into the States, I booked a flight to New York, and I've been here ever since. Still working and creating content in the wee hours of the morning and changing some of my systems and processes in order to get content out to you guys while dealing with the most difficult time in my life ever. When I got back to New York, my father was actually in ICU, which is the portion of a hospital where the most sick patients go to for recovery. He had a syncope event, which is like passing out. They did blood tests on him and find out that he went into septic shock. But he got better, relatively speaking. But when I walked into that ICU room and saw him, it broke my heart. Inside, it killed my spirit. But I couldn't show him that. As strong as what he was for me throughout my life to raise me, the ball was on the other foot now. And I had to be as strong for him to give him the energy to continue to fight. But my father, at that junction, it was tough. He had lost over 100 pounds, and the cancer within his spine made it so that he could no longer walk. And he would ask me every day that I was home, do you want me to continue to fight? Because I'm tired. Cancer is a motherfucker. Oh, it is a motherfucker. Because it strikes without warning. It doesn't care regarding how awesome of a life that you've had, how many people that loved you, how many lives that you've held. My dad was a school teacher in the New York City Public School District for 30 plus years. And the thousands, if not tens of thousands of kids that were touched by something that he said, it doesn't take into account any of that. And it just seeks to destroy. One of the things that was plaguing my father's illness was his ability to eat and to nourish himself. It is beyond difficult to want a loved one to eat food, basic nourishment in one's body, but them not having the ability to. So you're slowly watching them waste away. Day by day. And although he was verbally confirming with me that he was going to continue to fight, when he would ask me questions like that, I hated to know how much pain that he was in. Having cancer in your back or your spine is probably one of the most agonizing pains imaginable. I remember we would have to pull him up in his bed because, again, he didn't have the ability to walk anymore because he was so weak and the lesions on his spine. So sometimes we would lift and slide on the sheet that we would have underneath him. And, you know, the grimacing that he would have to go through when we did that. I remember when we first started to do it, to pull him up in the bed, I couldn't even bring myself to do it because I didn't want to cause him any pain. And by the end, I was the only one who wanted to do it because I had done it in a way to cause him the least amount of pain in comparison to the hospital attendees, the nurses, what have you. And I also remember that we had come up with a new strategy of sort. I would lean over him and he would put his arms up around me and sort of hug me, and I try to slide him with my body onto the bed to get him in the correct position so his back would stop hurting him. And I remember thinking, I wish that he would ask for that one, because it would give us an excuse to hug. And I remember when he would wrap his arms up around me, I remember thinking how this must have been how he felt when I was a baby, helpless, and I wrapped my arms around him as he moved me around. So yeah, I've been here every day, caretaking with my stepmother each and every day. June 5th, things had taken a turn. His breathing became extremely shallow, extremely labored. We had a tube going into one of his lungs to drain fluid. And the first day that they did it, it actually drained like 3 liters. I remember thinking to myself, how big are your lungs? Do they even fit 3 liters of fluid? But they did. And I gave him some extra time. That Monday was the first day that a doctor said that his condition is stage 4 and that it is terminal. By this time, looking at him in his situation, I knew that it was terminal, but it was something different to hear it from a doctor that it was terminal. By that point, I had done enough crying to hear the news and just pursue forward with taking care of him. I just remember thinking, how can my hero pass away? How can my hero not be here with us anymore? But when you hear the word terminal, you might think you have a couple of weeks, a couple of months. I remember saying to him that night, I want to go get my camera, Dad, so we can put it up here. I just want to just ask you some questions, right? Questions in my mind that I just always wanted to know. Even though over the past 6 weeks, we had ample opportunity to connect. We had ample time to catch up. We had ample time to continue to build on our already immaculate relationship. I knew how much that he loved me, and he knew how much that I loved him. But I still had some questions. That night I slept over at the hospital. And we talked. I talked about going to go get the camera, but I was super tired. I didn't want to leave his side, so I didn't go get the camera. His numbers, his O2, his heart rate, his blood pressure, everything was looking pretty normal for the machines that he had hooked on him. So we go to sleep, wake up in the morning, and his numbers are off. His numbers are looking extremely low. And I remember my stepmom came in to take care of him as I left to go get some food. I went to go get a platter, and then I came back. On my way back, she contacted me and said, his numbers are super low and they're still not coming up. So I went back to the hospital. food in hand. And I came and I looked at his numbers. And I was right. We got to do something about this. I remember I left the room. I went to go contact the nurses. I'm like, hey, isn't there the certain procedure that I named that was supposed to happen? The nurse looked at me and said, we're not going to do that procedure now. Oh, why? She said, I don't know. We'll have the doctors come in and speak to the family. I thought that was odd. So I left, went out to one of the waiting areas where I can still see him in the bed. My stepmom ran out the room to get the nurse's attention. I run into the room and he's having another pass out event. And pretty much that was the beginning of the end of him beginning to transition. Less than 24 hours between getting that diagnosis as he was transitioning, I kissed him on his forehead multiple times and told him that I loved him. He told me that he loved me back. And that meant the world to me. I let him know, Dad, it's okay. You're in a lot of pain. It's okay. You can let go. You did everything that you needed to do. You taught us everything that we needed to know. Your legacy will continue to live on within me. And because of that, to me, you're going to live forever. My father died within my arms. I was holding him as he took his final breath. But it was an absolute privilege to be there, to have done so. Because just as he was one of the first people to hold me for my first breath, I was the last person to hold him for his last. I've been over here looking at this picture that I have right here. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is try to get me out of focus. I was probably like 11, 12, something like that. Yeah, I was a late bloomer. Please don't look at my damn boots, all right? We didn't have a lot of money. Those are not Timbs, those are Fims. You understand me? All right? You had to do what you had to do when you were a Payless shopper. This is one of my most favorite. This is one of my favorite pictures of him. Looking up at my hero. The man that sacrificed his life to stop what he was doing, because at the point that I was born, and at the point that he became a single father, he knew what the task was. He knew what he had to do. If I had the opportunity to ask him a question on the recorder, I would have asked him, what does it mean to be a father? What are the key things that you would always think through in order to continue to raise me to be within your likeness, within your image? while I didn't get an opportunity to ask him, I think I would know exactly what he would say. Just as I mentioned before, there's been a couple of times where I featured my father on the channel. One of those was when I paid off my condo, my first home. And I called him and told him, recorded that phone call, and then I put it into some content.
How are you, son?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just sitting here. My face hurts from smiling so much.
Why is that?
That's another first. You know.
What?
You're the first person in the family to get an MBA. First person in the family to well, I don't know about the whole family, but in this family here, to have a new car. Because I ain't never had a new car. Can't afford it.
Yeah.
And first person to pay off this house in 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable. That's something, man. Wow.
Yeah.
That's putting your money in the right places where you're really setting your life up for later.
Mm-hmm.
You really are.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's like money in the bank too. You know? So
yeah, because it's an investment. I say yeah, because it's an investment. Because you know, it's different than a car. You know, because you know it's a depreciating asset, but this home is not going to depreciate. So it's, you know, I think it's money well spent.
Well, the thing is that you're not paying interest on a loan anymore, too.
Mm-hmm.
So then that adds to your money.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do go to sell it, it's not like you got to pay off a mortgage to see and see any kind of profit. You know, on that because you've either you didn't refinance, you didn't do all those things. So, but you absolutely did what most Americans can't do, let alone think of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can't begin to tell you. That's a real proud moment. Wow.
I mean, every year it's been every time that I've had debt, it's been 2.5 years from undergrad. When I was doing, I started off at like $45,000 a year with $20,000 to $25,000 in debt. That took me 2.5 years. When I graduated, with my MBA, thank goodness I had a full tuition ride scholarship, but all of the cost and living and then that trip to Europe that I took, I came out with like $45,000. That took me about 2.5 years. Wow. And then I started this at the end of 2018 for the mortgage, and that took me 2.5 years. So it's been exponential increases in the amount. This is by far the largest increase of what I had to pay off in the 2.5 years, but it took me about 2.5 years, a little less than 2.5 years to pay this one off. Yeah,
that's amazing. But what that does, that puts you in more control of your life.
Mm-hmm. That's really it. Yeah, I mean that's the reason why I did it, is just for absolute and utter control. Because really, right now, I mean, technically, I'm financially independent right now. I wouldn't have to work again unless my life changed in some way, my lifestyle changed in some way. But I mean, after I pay this off, it's just taxes and food and utilities.
I mean, I think you understand it now at 35. You're going to really appreciate that at 45.
Mm-hmm.
55, because the one thing you can't do, you can't buy more time. So as you get older, you realize that those things that you put in place, and then every subsequent project that you do, it's going to be even more money in the bank. So you're going to be able to even save more now than what you ever were able to save, because you won't have that mortgage, which was probably your biggest monthly, looking at. Congratulations. I'm very proud of you. Love you. That's wonderful. I'm glad so much. Excellent. All right. I'll talk with you later.
All right, see you there. The second time that I featured on the channel was actually a YouTube short where I surprised him home and he started like running towards me.
He's not looking.
Oh, you set me up. We got him good.
couch when you called, sitting.
That was the second time. And then the third time I actually wanted to go over right here. It was actually last Father's Day. So let me just read it. My father has a habit of saving absolutely everything from my childhood. He recently sent me a picture of this note that I wrote as a child for the Who is Your Hero essay. Happy Father Day, my G's. You are appreciated. My hero in life is my dad. He has always been there when I needed help or just someone to talk to. He inspires, teaches, shows, and explains everything to me. Even the littlest of questions would be answered. If I needed help in math, language, or science, my dad was right there helping me. On special occasions, we would go out to ride our bikes, go to the arcades, or even go to see a movie. When I was not feeling well, he would always be there. Anytime I needed or sometimes wanted something, he would be there too. Whatever I did with my dad was fun. In conclusion, I think my dad is a hero because he's always there for me. To all the fathers out there, soon to be fathers, or men that are thinking about being fathers, just as I've always said on my channel, do everything in your power to be in your child's life. Everything. To all of the boy dads out there, soon to be boy dads, do everything in your power to stay in the life of your boy. I personally don't know where I would be or what type of person I would be if my father wasn't there to demonstrate the characteristics of success, the characteristics of manhood. I would have not have had the tools in my toolkit to be who I am today by no stretch means of the imagination. To my pops, thank you, Dad. Thank you. Although your physical presence is no longer here, you will always be with me. I will try my hardest to uphold your legacy. I may mess up sometimes, but such is life. But I'll keep it classy, just like you asked me to. All right. What I also wanted to show you guys is a video from last year where a young brother called me as I was live streaming after Kevin Samuel's funeral, and he shared a couple of quick words with me of how to conceptualize death within your life. Hopefully you guys will find value from this video as the same way I did.
So my father, his body passed away about 2.5 years ago. And he and I are very close, very, very close. Yet and still, when his body died, there was no grieving for me. My other brothers and sisters, they grieved and told stories and reminisced. But the reason why I didn't grieve and I don't grieve and I haven't grieved and I'm not going to grieve is because I believe in God. And I am fully aware that we are not our bodies. And what I love about my father and what I respect about my father is A, what he did, and B, who he is. And what he is his spirit. What he is his soul, and his soul is alive and well. You know, the only reason to grieve for somebody whose body has died, and really that's what it is, that's what I call it, it's the body that dies, is if they live the wicked life. And if they live the wicked life, then there's a good chance that you won't see them again. You know, but if they lived the righteous life and they were here, at least from what you can observe, doing the work of God, and that's the work that you're here to do, then we're all trying to get to the same place. And if we're all trying to get to the same place, then, I have a very high hope that I'll be seeing my father again, because he was a great father, and I'm trying to live a righteous life. And so I'll be going to see my father again. And so within that context, I haven't shed a tear. I mean, the only time I cry is when I think of how hard he worked, life, because if you live your life right, life is going to be hard, because you're always going to be pushing up against the belly of the dragon. You're always going to be fighting the demons. That's what it means to live a righteous life, because we're living in diabolical times. If you're going to be righteous in diabolical times, you're going to be fighting a lot. And so my dad fought a lot, and he sacrificed a lot for me and for my brothers and sisters. So even when he was alive and I thought about that would bring me to tears. But I never, I feel joy when I think of my dad, and I pray for him every day. I feel gratitude that he was here, and gratitude that God gave me a father like that. So for me to focus on any negative feelings, like sadness because he was here, is really an expression of ungratitude, because it's like, God gave me a father when he didn't give most men fathers, and he gave me a great father when he could have given many men, terrible fathers. And so it's like God gives you a toy, and then God takes the toy away, and then you cry and complain. So it's like, in my context, it's like, I was blessed to have that man. And so his body's not here. And you know what? Good for him. Because as you know, this life is no picnic. It's a lot of fighting. It's a lot of struggle. And whenever God comes for me, I'm happy to go. Like, I got 3 kids, and I talked to them. I was like, listen, don't cry for me, babies. Your daddy's glad to go and be with his maker. Glad to be out of the struggle, glad to be out of the race, glad to be out of all this. While I'm here, I'm grateful. I'll do whatever God has sent me to do. But when it's time for me to go, hey, I'm I'm out. Deuces, I'm out. And that's where my dad is, and that's my goal. My goal is to accomplish what my dad has accomplished, which is to live a great life, raise some good children, and then be at peace with my maker. And if that's what my father is, like, who am I to be sorry for him? You know what I'm saying? Like, and so insofar as Kevin is concerned, I mean, he was making plans for the future, but, he did what God put him here to do. And, good for him. And if we can, us that remain, can finish our life that way, then peace and blessings, peace and blessings. And I just wanted to share that with you, because I can feel that you're kind of going through a hard emotional time, but really, thank God that you met this man. And the other thing is this, is that, what hit me is that my father, because my father is his spirit, as long as I respect the reason why he sacrificed, he sacrificed, and he gave his life literally for me. And as long as I respect that life, then there is no death, because this is how men live. We live through our progeny. This is why we want to create life, is we live through passing on our life and our experiences to our progeny. And so my father was successful in doing that through me, because I honor it. Now, if I don't honor it, then his work becomes useless, and his life becomes useless, and his sacrifice therefore becomes useless. But whatever he gave to me, I use every day, and I pass on to my children. And so he lives in more ways than one. So, like, logically, spiritually, there's just no space for mourning,
I wholeheartedly appreciate this perspective. As I mentioned on the channel, I don't have much experience with this, but to me, brother, it sounds as though you are very experienced within this. And, I know that you, leverage your father within this. And thank you. Thank you.
No
I haven't quite heard it put like that before. And I'm trying to still wrap my mind around it, but it makes so much sense. But thank you, because I have not heard a perspective like that before.
Well, brother, look, I didn't hear it until it hit me. I've not really experienced, my father dying was really the first time somebody that really was close to me died. I've had people, you know, but my father was my father. And when I got word that he died, my brother called me, told me to sit down. I sat down, he told me. And for about 3 hours, I was very confused. I didn't really know what to do. And then I'm Muslim, so I got down to pray. It was time to pray, and so I prayed. And as I was praying for my father, I simply, you know, I pray for him every day, 5 times a day. And so whenever I prayed for him, I started to pray for him this time. And as I was praying for him, I realized that most of the things that I prayed for him, I didn't have to pray for anymore. I prayed for his happiness. I prayed for his physical health. I prayed for him to be content. And it's like, I just kept praying. I was like, oh, wait a second. I don't have to pray for that. I don't have to pray for that. And in the middle of my prayer, I'm just smiling. It's like, wow, I just felt, because I didn't have to worry about him. Like, that was just it. It's like the only thing that I had to do was just to be left with the joy of the life that he had. And what my father gave me. So that was all, and that's literally all that's left. Like, that's what's left. It's just joy. It's just like, wow, I have an incredible father, and he lives through me. Like, even I'm starting to look like him. You know, it's weird. And I never thought that but it's happening. It's like, I'm so blessed. Like, how can I be sad just because God took away the thing that he gave me? It's like, I always knew he was going to die. I always knew his body was no longer, so it's not like it's a surprise. Right. And the only thing that I have left with is the goodness that God has given me. So it's like, God lend me somebody lends you $100 and say, listen, I'm going to come back for this. And they come back for it. And then you be like, man, why'd you take my $100? That's mine. Like, no. Like, God lent him to me for a while. And God took him back. And I had him for a long time, like, 20, 30, 40 years. So I'm going to complain now? Like how is that fair to God?
Right.
You know?
Listen, I didn't know how much I needed this conversation. And I know I was trying to keep you to a minute, but you started to go. Just thank you, brother.
Yeah, God bless you, man.
No more time for
hood boogers, man. Leave him alone.
Wait, say it again?
So don't give any more time for hood boogers. Like, let's focus your energy on putting out what Kevin gave you. Especially today.
I appreciate that. I wholeheartedly appreciate that, brother, because, I'm not gonna lie, today, Kev in my mind was Uncle Kev, you know what I'm saying? Like, in my mind, you know what I'm saying? I never said him now. I was like, hey, Kevin, you know what I mean? And I call him his full name because honestly, he said it. He said he didn't like people calling him Kev. So I call him Kevin, but in my mind, he's like Uncle Kev, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's got like 16 years on me. And, you know what I'm saying? I'd be lying if I tell you that throughout this day, I hadn't considered my father as well. And my father has heart disease. And to hear what you said and to know that, my father has heart disease and he's still with me. And the gratefulness that I have that I can just call him right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And, with your words just mean so much to me, brother. So thank you. I wholeheartedly appreciate that.
Yeah, God bless you, man.
God bless you, man. Thank you so much for calling in, bro.
All right, check you out.
All right. Whoo!
Thank you guys in advance for all your prayers, all your condolences. It means the world to me. But I'm going to make it through this one. If I can make it through this one, I can make it through anything. Literally, I can make it through anything. This is the toughest time in my life. This is the toughest time in my family's life. Because the patriarch, my father, my hero, is no longer with us. But I am happy. I am so happy that I had the last 6-ish weeks to be with him, to hold him, to talk to him, to continue to ask questions of him, to seek the wisdom from him. That is what he always did. That's blessed. Until next time, YouTube. Peace.